I'm less concerned about tying your hands on acquisitions and contracts if it's limited to a segment of the system that does not in any way predispose you to Pacheco versus Altamont, because I continue to believe that Altamont is the better selection and the one that ultimately a successful program is going to have to move toward. So I guess I want to ask you as specifically as I can and ask for as specific an answer as I can. Is there anything in the funding request that we're being asked to approve that would invest in a Pacheco route and in any way commit the process to that route?
I think if I may split your question into two, anything that would be built, in other words, what we plan to build in the Central Valley, would not affect that decision at all.
But would you be seeking any property acquisitions on the Pacheco route?
No.
So signing any design-build contracts on the Pacheco route?
No. So that would not happen. So there would be no design-build or right-of-way acquisition. It would only be in the core of the Central Valley, which would apply to all the alternatives, both the alternatives you spoke about. Obviously, within the budget that we are requesting, there is further work that would be done, engineering work and environmental clearance work, on the Pacheco Pass alignment, but no right-of-way acquisition and no design-build contracts.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Valadao.
I guess I'm a little interested in the fact that everybody wants to start in the Central Valley, but when I talk to my locals, they feel like they've had absolutely no voice in this. You had an open house there a week ago, no open mic, no opportunity for anybody to voice their opinion on it, and then I come back up here in Central Valley, Central Valley, Central Valley, and why isn't anybody talking to locals? Why isn't there an opportunity for the locals to have an opinion or a voice on what's going? Obviously, it's going through their property. Just my county alone, we're looking at 11,400 acres of property basically demolished for a test track, which I'm not a big fan of. I mean, if it's a test, let's test somewhere where we don't actually produce anything. But agriculture there in our area is our biggest business. That's what we do. That's what puts people to work. And if we have water, our unemployment numbers actually improve, which they will this year. Luckily, rain provided that water for us. So I'm curious why so much Central Valley talk up here, but not enough in the district.
I think, at least in the time I've been around, I've been to the Central Valley many times. I've been to many meetings, hearings, and public possibilities where many people have spoken.
I've had a few people actually kicked out of meetings in the last few weeks that were not allowed in when those meetings were closed door with some of the local staff. When I've met with my planning commission at the county, all they were given was a map. I asked them questions about what the rail was going to look like, and they couldn't answer a single question for me. So
I would be most willing to discuss it with you. Obviously, that's not the intent. There clearly are design meetings, and there clearly are public meetings. But the public meetings, I've been to many public meetings myself, and I know my staff has them too, and public is given a great opportunity to talk. But the process has been going on for nearly 12 years, I guess, but the more serious process has been going on for 2 or 3 years, with many, I would say, hundreds of meetings that have taken place. And the alignment and the way they align with the whole environmental process is being conducted. Is being conducted to meet the requirements of CEQA at the end of the day and NEPA. It is being monitored by people like the FRA, but also the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers. It's not purely a high-speed rail process. It's a process that everybody else is involved in as well. And the process and the selection of the Central Valley was based, again, on many discussions and meetings, whereby I think you do know that finally, with a strong recommendation, in fact, more than a recommendation from the FRA, that the best place to start was the Central Valley, being one of, or two, in fact, 2 of 4 ARA pre-qualified sections.
And I really do believe that the decision to place the Central Valley on first, as the LAO mentioned in the report, was political reasons to help elect a local congressman. But I'd really like to ask the LAO what their reasons are for pushing the high-speed rail out of the valley.
Trans expertise makes a lot of sense. at this stage of the project.
And then in one of your, on the report, there's a comment here. The Bureau of Labor Statistics actually states that 97% of all operators of track laying equipment that the high-speed rail indicates it would use for the project reside in other states. So, I mean, that's a pretty large percentage of the people. I mean, when we're talking about jobs for our area, 97% of people that would be laying the track aren't from California. That's an interesting comment there.
Well, if I may, that's just an example of some of the work that would be done. Certainly, a number of Californians will be employed. There's earth-moving work. There's you know, the overpasses and grade separations that'll need to be developed. All those things that are very similar to what we Californians can do today for highway projects will need to be done. That's an example of work that Californians don't have expertise in. It's technically, and Mr. Van Ark can probably describe it better than I can. There are today machines that just basically drive along a railroad track and lay track in front of itself, and it's an efficient way to do so, to build railroad tracks. And these types of workers aren't necessarily in California, but there would be a number of jobs that would still come for Californians, of course.
And one last question on the comparisons for the cost here in this book. What the 2009 estimate for the cost of laying the track, the Fresno-Bakersfield segment, it's gone up 57%. And I think in our sub-hearing that we had last week, Caltrans had an average increase of cost of what, 30-some%, 38% I think it was on a $4.5 million project. They were over usually about $1.5 million. I mean, 57% is a huge jump in cost, and I just don't see why we're rushing through this thing. I don't want to see it go through my district. I know my constituents, that's our #1 concern, down to our local sheriffs, our local board of soups. Everybody that knocks on my door is always saying the same thing: get this away from our county. They're scared, obviously, for the cost as a taxpayer. Then the guys that own the 11,000 acres, it's a list of probably 30 or 40 people, but the majority of the voices are people that are worried about the long-term cost of this project, and it's really just really concerned with this whole project in general and the way it's being run. And we talk about the expertise of the project. I look at the board that sits there and decides what's going to be done, and I don't really see anybody there that has any expertise in building anything of this nature. I don't even see Caltrans having the ability to build this, because they've never built. What was the largest project Caltrans ever built? $1 billion? I mean.
Well, yeah, it depends on how you look at it. I guess the Bay Bridge is probably the largest project, and it's roughly $8.5 billion, I think now. Caltrans could answer that better.
And then we basically put this thing in high gear, and we're told to rush through. And then on top of that, through my district, where all my constituents are really up in arms, and the next available opportunity we have is in a few weeks for open mic. And they feel like they're being run over with this project, and they're not happy with it at all. And so I'd really ask that you guys do spend some time in the district, listen to some of them, don't throw them out at the meetings, and give them the opportunity to share their opinions on what's going on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valadao. And let me just say having constituents who are vocal, as I do, I understand the issues and challenges, and Mr. Van Ark, I would, if you have not met with Mr. Valadao, I would encourage you to do so as soon as possible.
We have, but I would still like to meet with you, especially I don't like hearing that people get thrown out of meetings. I would like to clarify the situation, obviously. But if I may, Mr. Chairman, just on the issue of the Central Valley, I mean, I was hired as a high-speed rail expert to come and run this project, and I must just reconfirm to Member Valadao and others that the decision to build this backbone, not the test track, it's not a test track, it's the track where the trains will be tested, but it is the track. It's the backbone of the high-speed rail system that will connect Northern California to Southern California. It is a system that is necessary if you believe in high-speed rail. If you do not believe in high-speed rail, but you want to build a commuter rail system between LA and Anaheim, then you could put the money in that LA-Anaheim system. But that is not a high-speed rail system. That is a 90 miles an hour commuter rail infrastructure which will accommodate high-speed rail trains one day to get people to Anaheim. But you cannot do any testing of a high-speed rail train on there. And it is not the back, it is a very expensive infrastructure that you have to build there because of the cities. So therefore, without that backbone, without putting a backbone, without connecting Northern California and Southern California, that what the people want, what the people have voted for in Prop 1A will never come about. Due to the size, scope, and complexity of this project, the number of stakeholders affected along the whole of the corridor, up and down 800 miles of corridor, this is an enormous task. This budget position of $2.3 million is quite frankly extremely limited for the size of this project, a $45–50 billion project.
I'd like to thank Mr. Huffman for his comments and echo that. Going out and talking to the people about funding, ridership, your financial plan, your business plan, your management structure, alignment, I don't know if you really are ready to go out and talk to the public about that, because none of those things are actually really clear as of yet. And then in the LAO report, you see that you've got 604 consultants already, $6.9 million in invoices paid to consultants without properly verifying if the work was actually completed. I don't know if you're quite ready for the amount of money that you're asking for. And especially on the alignment part of it, we're doing another study now around the Tejon area, the I-5 alignment, another $700,000 to study something that's already been studied and pushed aside. I don't know if we're quite ready for this much money, so I'm going to have to vote no on this one.